Hello, GenRight Nation. I'm Tony Pellegrino, and this is Tech Talk. All right, hope everybody's doing well today. It is June 25th. Man, we are flying through the month. Of course, we've got Jennings here behind the camera and ready to read questions.
Hi.
So Tech Talk is something that we do every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So if you're joining us live, awesome. That's part of the fun because you get to ask questions and participate in what the topics are. So that's cool. Of course, we're here to talk about your favorite subject and mine, Jeeping. How to drive them, how to build them. And we're definitely going to talk about building them today, I can tell you that. And of course, if you want to ask a question or comment, you just type it in as a comment and include as much information as you can, and we will try and get to those. We'll try to get to all of them if we can. And certainly if they're on topic, that's great too. Let's see. I was going to give a tip. We had a guy who was on his cell phone and wanted to watch and ask a comment. So I recommended actually watching it on the TV or his computer and then using his phone to comment. You do have to log in to your YouTube profile in order to comment. So if you're having trouble with that, that's why. Jennings, who we got on so far?
Oh, let's see. Bobby Cleveland says, hello, GenRight Nation from Yukon, Oklahoma.
Nice, nice.
Snowboard Life says, hey, GenRight Nation, watching from Ohio. Amy Cleveland, also from Yukon, Oklahoma. Kathy McCavis says, hello, GenRight Nation.
Awesome.
Troy Merritt says, hello, I'm back in
Troy.
Nebraska.
Yeah, he is. He had a big trip, 4,000 mile plus.
Bob Becker says, hey.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Dirt. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Gone Wheeling. Hello, GenRight Nation from Colorado. Ted Miranda says, what's up, GenRight Nation? Watching from the BNG 4x4 garage.
Nice.
And Terry says, hey, everyone. Jeff Lone says, hey, everyone. How's everyone handling this heat wave? Jerry DeRimple says, hello, friends.
Hey, Jerry.
Shamrock Adventures says, hey, Tony Jennings and GenRight Nation. Greetings from Patrick and Laura in San Diego.
Nice.
Daniel Partita says hello. Shane Wolford says, go GenRight. Kyle Jackson says hello from Utah. Two Feathered Channel says hello. Rich Jedlowski says hi from Tony and the GenRight team.
All right.
Matt McDonough says, hey guys, checking in from Norman, Oklahoma. VB Tom says hello from St. George, Utah. Travers Inslow says hello. Richard Peterson from Lodi. Let's see. I don't know. We got
Very
a lot
nice.
of people.
That's a lot. Awesome.
Mike from Arkansas.
Thanks,
Sean
everybody.
Flaherty, Jeep Fam, Keith Lyon. Hey, Keith.
Hey.
And a whole bunch more. Oh, Fran from Minnesota's on here.
Nice. I know he's doing a stage 1 too, so I'm sure he's interested in checking out where we're at.
Mark Lawrence is watching. Adams Racing from Newport Beach. Bill Walton. Joshua Whitesides from
Bill.
Fort Worth, Texas.
All right.
Everybody.
Nice.
Ryan Strom from Michigan.
Okay.
He says, I picked up a frame to start my elite suspension over the weekend. Can't wait to get started.
Nice.
And Joe and Split from Alpine, San Diego.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's get going here. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and I'm sure it'll go fast. Let's see. Featured product today. We did, if you missed it last time, we did upgrade the rotors and the pads on Sonic to the R1 concepts. I just talked to some people about this over the last few days. This is a great upgrade, especially when you go into 37s, you want a little more stopping power. They make the pads in different performance. Can you see what I'm pointing at down here?
Oh.
The different colors mean different performance series. So you can look at the specs on their website and choose the ones that are best for you, depending on how crazy you want to get. Okay, back to the screen. I'm going to talk for a second about our Central California overland trip that I just got back from. This was a 4-day. If you remember, my last Tech Talk actually was from what we call day 0 because we got up there So up in this area. So last Tech Talk from Ridgecrest, it was hot, super hot. I couldn't believe that actually the camera didn't go off.
Yeah.
So I posted over 70 pictures on my Facebook page, and I'm going to give you a quick preview of the group. So there was 12 of us. Some weren't here for the first morning shot, but they showed up later. We had some young people along, and that's a raft that Jennings and I bought at Overland Expo. This was the first night we spent right here on this river. This is part of the Owens River. Right here, it mixes with the hot spring, and the water temperature is about 101. And it's just wonderful. And you're going to see the whole group of us. And by the way, this is way up by Mammoth. The whole group of us got in there. And this is Tommy's son. He was out there just having a good time.
My first time in a hot river. It was amazing.
It was amazing. So we were kind of by this little dam thing here, which was cool. Look, we were all in there having fun, even the dog. And yeah, it was really quite nice. Lots of kids. This is over by Lake Crowley, which is where we went the next day. And that's beautiful if you're familiar with that area at all. Mammoth is back here in the mountains there. And this is kind of a phenomenon along Lake Crowley on this one shore where these little pillars appear. They've been washed, up or whatever it is. As the water beats on the shore, it kind of leaves these pillars. What's very interesting is these rocks that are down on the ground are super light, like styrofoam. And nobody knows what the deal is here, but it's cool. Okay, this was the next night at a lake called Funnel Lake. And this is 10,800 feet where we're at right here. Absolutely beautiful. That's obviously snow melt. Which you can see here, the snow is still melting and coming down. There was another lake right up here in this other little funnel, and really, really beautiful. You can see the blue sky, and that was quite fun. Then the next day, we went over to the reward mine. It's just big enough to drive a Jeep inside, and you go in, I don't know, a mile or so. It's pretty cool. And then the next day, we set up camp in the Alabama Hills, and this is right below Mount Whitney. In fact, the Whitney Portal, I'll show you a picture in a second, is not far from here. So we set up our camp and then went up there. This is really cool too. This is just outside of Lone Pine, off the 395, so pretty cool. And then nearby, rivers, and there's a really big one right here. And this again is snow melt, and this baby is roaring. So everybody in the group went up there to check it out. Some people had a snack, just, really pleasant temperature, nice weather, big trees. And this is actually Mount Whitney, way back. And this is a view from our camp. And then the next day we went, so where we were, those pictures I just showed you, we were up in this canyon right here, and this is Mount Whitney right there. So we came back, we camped down here in the Alabama Hills. The next day we went all the way to the next mountain range across the way. So those are the Sierras, this is the White Mountains that we're up inside. And we ran some trails up here. I can't remember the name of the trail we were on this one. There's another look at Mount Whitney. Anyways, we went over to the Salt Tram, and this is an old structure built in the 1900s, and they used to take salt from the Saline Valley down on the other side in Death Valley up over and transport it over to Los Angeles. So really, really a cool thing if you've never been there. And then we went over and visited Cerro Gordo. Okay. So if there's no questions on that, I'm going to move on.
Well, there's questions.
There is.
Not necessarily on that.
Okay, so give me some questions before we turn the camera around.
Okay. Let's see. Snowboard Life asked, hey, when can we expect our polo shirts and new hoodies? I need more Jeep gear to wear.
Okay. Jamie just finished a bunch of new Jeep gear, including a larger brim, like sun hat. So those are coming. He's got a whole new series of hats, including a red, white, and blue one. He's got all new shirts and stuff, including long sleeve, like sun shirts. So he's got a whole slew of stuff. That's probably a couple weeks out. So.
We need women's tanks.
Okay, well, you got to work with Jamie on that.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Okay. Rich Jedlowski says, I'll be doing an elite upgrade on my 13 JKU. I'll be in touch soon.
Nice. That's awesome.
Daniel Partida says, question,
Sure.
2017 Jeep JKU. Can you run your thicker rear sway bar to remove the front on stock Dana 44 axles with coils and springs, or do coilovers first? Would still bolt to the axle okay?
Yes, you will be pleasantly surprised, because when we turn around, that's exactly what we get on Sonic right here. Okay.
And then Kyle Jackson says, question, TJ, GenRight front aluminum 4-inch fenders, installed a set of mini boatside rockers. The lower forward 2 mounting holes overlap drain holes in the torque tube. How should I deal with that?
They do. There should be plenty of room there for everything. So, can you send me a picture? Just text me a picture or email me a picture. That'd be great. And I will check that out.
Abel Darian said, Tony, can you recommend a shop that can install a GenRight cage around Los Angeles County?
We've got plenty of them. Yeah, we've got. Well, certainly Redlands, Rob out at Redlands, but there's several, and hopefully Jeff Andrew was on. Andrew can recommend a couple of shops that he knows have capability or time right now, because some of the good shops get filled up pretty quick. So, and depending on how capable you are, you can buy a welded cage from us and then install it yourself too. That's an option.
Wait.
Okay.
Rick Turner said, not so pleasant weather here, 106-degree heat with 85% humidity. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Patrick says Swansea grade to Salt Tram
Swansea, that's it. Yes, he yes.
Two Feather Channel has a question. Stage 1 JL high steer kit on the website says, recommend PSC big box instead of RAM assist. Does that mean this setup can't be used with the RAM assist add-on later? It
can. It requires some additional things, and I'm doing it when we turn around. I'll show you what we have going.
Trail Team 7 asks, will Terremoto ever be yellow again?
Don't know about that. Don't know. Because version 2 is already white, so...
Patrick says, yay for sun shirts, watching my poor Irish skin on SoCal. Terry says, 2018 JKU with Dana Ultimate 60s, which are 69.5 WMS. Can you fit 3-inch King or Fox coilovers, or just 2.5s?
That's right on the edge. So if you had, so normally we run a 4.5-inch backspace wheel. So if you have a 4, a 375, a 3.5 backspace wheel, for sure you'll be able to do it. But you're kind of messing with your scrub radius. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
And Kyle Jackson asked, how should I finish my aluminum TJ corners that showed up today? Red Scotch-Brite pads, polish, something else? And also, do you just drill and tap those to mount the GenRight rear fenders, or through bolts? No,
I drill and tap mine. That's a great question. So I prefer the Scotch-Brite finish, just kind of a, not a grained finish, but just a, brushed aluminum is the look I like with Scotch-Brite. Because if something happens, it's really easy to just scuff it up again and make it look like brand new. I do like drilling and tapping the fenders on. Then when you take them off, you can either leave them, or you can put the button head bolts back in and just kind of make it look finished. Totally up to you. But yeah, those are all great questions. And polish is a lot of work. So yeah, I would just do the brush Scotch-Brite finish for sure.
Okay, now we're caught up.
Okay, great. Let's spin around. Let's talk about what we got. Yep, I'll move the lights for you so you can do that. And,
Oh, hello, sexy.
well, you're going to need to move over here. Let's move that chair and let's move over. Oh, you're going that? No, go to the other side if you can. There you go.
We're
I know you got the brakes on one wheel, right?
You got a view of the Sonic.
Okay.
Looking all cool.
Okay, so the first question we had was about our sway bar. So I mounted the GenRight's sway bar in here, and this is it's about 30% stiffer than a Rock Jock, or what most people know as the anti-rock sway bar. You can also see that I drilled additional holes here because this is kind of our test bed. What this does is by moving the bolt in, it makes the sway bar actually stiffer. So we can play with what feel Jennings likes. She's a little concerned when it comes to off-camber.
Yeah.
So chances are I'll have this on the stiffer setting.
Only since that day on the roof.
Okay, so you're probably looking at this and saying, hey, Tony, why are the arms so far down? Well, the axles drooped out. If this was at ride height, these would rotate up to something in here. Now, with both our sway bar and the Rock Jock anti-rock, you have to move these to the inside. So there's a hole up on the inside. You just undo this, put it on the inside, and then that gets it out of the way from anything. You know, right now it'll swing up. It just barely touches it, so it's better off to move those in because when you're actually flexing out on the trail, these arms move around. So you want to make sure there's some good clearance there. Of course, you can see the gas tank. I can't even remember when we had the tech talk here last talking about stage one, where we were at. So I'm just going to kind of talk in general, okay? And I know that some of you are really watching this to see how long it takes us. The one caveat I want to tell you is I decided that I was going to revise our instructions. Obviously, our instructions have been good enough for dozens of people to be able to put this in themselves. But I want to be more clear because what it does is it helps speed up the process. The good news is, you know, the cross members, those things, that's really easy and straightforward because they locate on holes that are already existing in the frame. You're already using your stock shocks and springs. That's way easier. You know, we had a bigger rear end in here, not the 44. So that meant I had to modify a bridge and make some stuff fit. The moment, you know, you start introducing anything that's not just factory Rubicon stuff, then you're going to be adding time because you got to make sure that it's all going to work together and fit and everything like that. Okay, so let's move toward the front and actually, can you see through here? Can you see this right here? Maybe move toward me. Do you need help moving lights or just unplugging lights? Yeah, just unplug them. And then that way you can come over here. There you go.
I got this one.
Come on over.
Okay, we're coming.
You gotta lower it? What do you gotta do?
We got technical
You still gotta lock the wheel.
Here.
Unlock that wheel.
This is.
There you go.
Oh dear.
You wanna lower it down?
That is
Oh, now
so
you're
hard.
catching the other light. Hang on. There you go. Okay, can you see into here now?
Move this.
Well, this is part of my display that I'm
Move
gonna be
it.
talking about in a second.
Move it.
Is that good? Is that enough?
Okay.
Not quite. Uh-oh. Now we're...
Move your stuff.
Okay, hang on. Back up. We're going to talk about this first then. Because I need you to tilt down and look at this. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So, stock exhaust.
Oh, it's terrible.
What's terrible?
The stock.
Yeah. Okay. So, you may not realize this, but the stock exhaust has this curly Q pipe on it that allows both sides of the exhaust system to be even, okay? Now, what we did was we cut up the factory exhaust and we're, clocking it and changing the angles and things like this, where you can rotate things around, and then we'll weld this together. The only reason this is not done is because I started working on the RAM to be able to fit the PSC RAM. So that's okay, because part of what I wanted to show you, and I'm not sure, I think we can slide this out of the way now that Jennings can get in here. There you go. Can you get all the way in? Lower this down, right? Where's get that down a little bit. There you go.
Watch your fingers.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So one of the things that needs to happen in order to do this is that the axle has to be at full bump. Okay, and this is the trickiest part because you have to take the springs out to be able to do this. So, and this is, for you at home, if you're doing this in your garage, it's not that big of a deal. But if you wanted to take this to a muffler shop and just have them do this, it would be tough because they really don't have the ability to bump out your Jeep. So what happens is you got to make sure that you have room. So like, I'll give you an example here. So this little tube goes up in here. This is where it's going to cross over to the other side. And you've got to wiggle your way up around the drive shaft. And this is going to be done here. Hang on, let me put this down. Move this back up here. Hook this on here. There we go, like so. So now you can see what I got to do is I've got to have a series of little turns to get me up around the drive shaft, okay? And then reconnect this with the cat right here, okay? So, and you got to leave room for everything, right? Because things flex and do other things, but it's not a big deal. So the exhaust was really dirty. We had to clean up all the metal. And I just wanted to give you guys an example of what it's going to take to get this done. So we started working on the other side, and what's important to understand is that the gas tank used to be right here. So now the exhaust used to come down this side. Now we're moving it over to the other side. So not a big deal, just takes a little time. The main thing I wanted to stress to you was that this had to be done at full bump, okay? Because you run out of room real quick between the exhaust and the links and the drive shaft, and it's not that tough. You just take your time and cut the pieces. And this is part of the instructions I'm gonna change because a lot of this was kind of left up to you, and I'm trying to take that having to sit there and stare at it out so that you can really just kind of keep moving along like we did with the rest of the stuff. So, okay.
Wait,
so
we got a few more questions.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Okay. Craig Huffman, 2007 JKU, Dana 60 front, going to 40s. Go with Ram Assist or PSC Big Box?
Okay, so if you plan on off-road, if this thing's like 90% road, 10% off-road, you can do the Big Box. If you really want to off-road this thing, you've got to have Ram Assist. Keep in mind, Ram Assist is also your backup. If something happens to the steering box, the steering linkage, the Ram will get you off the trail. Okay, it's like having two fans. So on your radiator. So if one goes out, you're not dead in the water. That's the same thing on steering. If the box goes out, the Ram will still get you off the trail. Okay.
Okay. Daniel Partita says, question, I already have 2.0 King coilovers and looking to convert the rear, but should I look for a 2.5 upgrade all around? Could you even use them on built stock Dana 44s? I can't really bomb on stock axles.
Right. That's exactly right. So now you're asking the right question. So stock axles are only going to handle so much. So like we put those really nice Bilsteins on Grey Wolf, the one that we did the first stage one on. Now you can go so fast that you're well beyond the stock wheel bearings, the ball joints. Like there's a lot of other stuff that's going to start going south because you can go so fast. So having a proper size shock that slows you down a little bit really isn't a bad idea. Just know, if you put a bigger shock on, if you put a 2.5 or a 3, then you're going to be buying more parts in the near future, okay? Because you've got about 66% more dampening with a 2.5 and 66% more with a 3.0. So it's quite a bit more dampening control. And yeah, you're going to be able to go a lot faster.
So can you bomb down a desert fast on stock Dana 44s?
Well, your fast and my fast might be two different things. But I can tell you this, it's not just a standard desert road that's a problem. It's when you hit that rain rut or that set of whoop-de-doos that was bigger than you thought. That's when damage occurs. So.
Okay, let's see. Rich Jadlowski, how much suspension lift? Coil springs?
On this?
I think so.
Okay, so what was your lift? Was it like
I think it's 4-inch.
3.5 or 4 inch?
3.5 or 4
yeah.
inch.
Yeah, so remember, all we're doing is taking and replacing the suspension components, not the springs, not the shocks. So she just had a metal cloak kit in here, and we're just leaving the springs and shocks. Obviously, we got rid of the front sway bar. We're putting in a more heavy-duty one in the back. We moved the tank. We're giving it a belly lift or tummy tuck, whatever you want to call it. The cross members were all pre-welded. The links are all pre-welded. We tried to make this as easy as possible. So like Rich knows, he installed our Legend kit, okay? Well, the Legend kit, it just comes as a builder's kit. You got to do everything, okay? So
Isn't that what Ginger's doing too?
That's what Ginger's doing too.
Ginger's amazing.
So this requires a lot more work. Okay, so I want to talk about this right here. So this was one of the tricky spots. Can you see these lines here?
Yeah.
Okay, these are the fuel lines, okay? Because remember, the tank used to be right here. So the fuel line just had to run right here. So what we had to do was, there's a hard line and like a hard plastic line. So the hard metal line, we bent, we slipped this thing back on, and we were able to route them over the top of the transfer case back over here to this side of the frame, keeping them as far away from the exhaust as possible. So I'm gonna put a heat shield here, but I didn't want to have that in place while I showed you guys this stuff. And I'm taking pictures and redoing our instructions so I can help guide people. Some of these lines are right off the factory tank. In fact, if you tilt down here, this is some of the factory lines I didn't use or I trimmed and took stuff off, right? Like these little fittings, these little quick release fittings. So, and when you come back up, some of these lines go back to the tank and some stop here at the evap system. You got it?
Yep.
Oh, the lever was in the wrong spot? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the evap canister. Can you see that pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not normally located right here. It's in a different spot. And we had to bring it over here because normally it sits behind the gas tank on that side. We bring it over here. We had to extend. There's an electrical connection that goes in here. And then there's some of the plumbed connections. We were able to reuse a lot of that stuff. That factory plastic line, if you heat it up carefully with a heat gun, you can rebend it and reuse it. And that's really quite helpful. So we got that mounted there and then ran all the rest of the lines back to the fuel tank. Okay. So now I want you to come under here again, come all the way under and come over here. Can you, swerve around that stuff here? Hang on.
Gotta move that.
Yep. Is that better?
Wait.
There you go. Yeah, back it in. There you go. Look at
that. Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
Too much movement. Okay, it wasn't designed for that much.
We got a new dolly.
Yeah, we did. It's
now
smoother.
We need to secure it better.
Yes. Okay, can you get up in here now?
Okay.
Here. What if we do this? There you go.
Maybe if you didn't have so much stuff on the floor.
I know. Well, we're in tight quarters. Okay, so here's what I was working on today. So the ram that came with her steering box, she bought it as a kit from PSC, has what's called a fixed end ram. Okay, where you can see it's not adjustable. There's a Heim inside there, but it's fixed, right? It's not like this that you can turn and do other stuff with. So what I had to do was scrap that idea and go get an adjustable end ram. And now I'm going to be able to mount this. So I had to change the diff cover to a super thick aftermarket one. And I'll be able to weld these tabs on here. And then I'll be able to weld tabs onto the tie rod and get all this to clear. Now, this is not what I would call the ideal location. I actually like the ram way up underneath, tucked in. But you can see there's no clearance here at all. There's no room. This is full bump. And, by the way, we designed this suspension system to have, tremendous travel. You're getting a lot more wheel travel than you had before. And that's going to also come into articulation, right? This has got the reed knuckles, our chromoly steering. But look at how tight everything is. It goes all the way up to the frame. And then, of course, I refer to this piece as the magic behind it all, because this is the track bar mount that goes around the spring. So that was carefully designed to fit all this stuff. So that's why we originally started recommending just the big box, because to try and fit a ram in here, you're talking about a considerable amount more labor and time to get it in there. And then you got to plumb the lines and do all that stuff. So I know that anybody buying this system is kind of doing it on a budget, right? Or they're doing it themselves. And I was just trying to reduce the complexity of what it looked like. So not a big deal. We're going to be able to put it in. She's already got the box. It's already ported, right? It's not a big deal for me to do this. So, it's just one more thing that I've got to do. Sure, it's going to add, about 8 hours. So just to let everybody know, we're 9 8-hour days in on this, okay? So we easily have one more on the exhaust, and then I'll have one more dedicated to putting the steering in. And then we got to mount the skid plate, okay? Now, what happens with mounting the skid plate is we've included more holes than the factory stuff had. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the skid plate up, we're going to mark the locations where it needs to mount, and then we're going to weld in these new little bungs after we drill the holes. Okay, so this is something that comes in the kit, and you just drill the hole and then you weld that in. Okay, so we're almost done. We're really very close, and we're hoping to have this done by this weekend. By Friday, and then Jennings and I are going to be taking it over 4th of July on kind of a shakedown run up in the forest. And then we'll be able to take it on Jeepers Jamboree a couple weeks later. So, because we had some people asking us about that and bringing it on that. Okay.
Snowboard Life says, "Hey Tony, my Jeep JKU with 37s, is it worth getting control arms for steering?"
Well, you're talking about like adjustability, right? Because so just so you know, right? I put a left and a right hand Johnny joint on every control arm. So you can literally turn them like this and adjust the suspension, right? I can adjust the caster. I can adjust the alignment, right? Just by twisting each arm, and that adjusts everything. So that makes it really nice. A lot of control arms either have pre-welded ends, so you get no adjustment, or they have one, which means you got to drop the link down to change it and then put it back up. Okay. Certainly the factory stuff doesn't.
Oh, let's see. Tom Curran says, "I'm building a 112-inch wheelbase tracer, which means my rear sway bar links are 3 inches shorter than 115-inch wheelbase version. Do you think this will be too stiff?"
Well, not only would it be too stiff, you'll actually damage the sway bar. So typically, the minimum we'd run a sway bar length is 14 inches. Okay, because when you shorten it up too much, then it over travels and the bar will stay bent. Okay, so you got to be really careful about that. It may be worth not putting the sway bar in the tabs that we provide. You may have to do tabs that will allow you to move that further back, so you don't over torque that sway bar.
Okay. Cole Osmondson asked, does the big PSC box fit with full JK Elite and LT4?
Not sure about the LT4, but it definitely does with the JK Elite. Yeah.
What's an LT4?
V8 engine.
Rich Jadlowski, how well will a 2.5-inch lift work well in the Elite kit?
I think it'll work just fine. Yeah. Yeah, for people that want to, that was kind of the idea behind this whole thing is, that whatever lift you have, you just convert over and get the proper suspension geometry, no bump steer, which the aftermarket kits don't really address. Or if they do it with bolt-on bracketry that just rattles off and creates trouble where all this is welded on. So that's a big difference in reliability. Okay.
Joshua Whitesides asks, on the rear of the Stage 1, how is the anti-squat with the limited amount of separation by getting the belly flat?
Yeah, so that's back here, right? So yeah, right there. You should be able to see it right there. So this is exactly the same thing that I've been running on Terramoto since 2012. And yes, you have limitations underneath the body. That's part of what we talk about. Could you do something different? Sure you could. You could build a buggy, right? And then you can move the links and separation anywhere you want, right, when you build a buggy. But we're trying to do something underneath the Jeep. So we've come up with the best possible system that can be mounted under a Jeep with a flat belly. All of these things are great advancements for the vehicle. And if you notice, even the links are at the same height, or if you look at the front drive shaft's much higher. Like you'll never get into that front drive shaft. It is tucked up and out of the way. And these are some of the benefits by having this kind of system, because if you're scraping along something, what'll happen is it'll end up riding on the link and not on the, whether it's a ledge or a rock or a tree or something, you're not going to end up hitting the drive shaft. But back to separation. I feel you better pick that up because it's going to yank the thing out of the camera. I feel that our anti-squat is perfect on this. And what it does is it allows, when you go to climb something, it's pushing the wheels down to actually fill the holes so it keeps the body level. And when you go to climb something, instead of the thing squatting in and feeling like it's going to go over backwards, it actually pushes against the hill and takes you up. You can watch many videos that we've got out there on Terramoto going up backdoor and other big climbs. And there's no issue with the anti. In fact, I think it's absolutely perfect built into this. Okay.
Nice. Let's see. Did we just ask that about the loop exhaust?
Yeah, that we cut it apart and use it with all these different turns. Yep.
Michael Costin asks, when you say 8-hour days, is that for one person?
One person, 8-hour days. Yep. So if you get a couple people on it, it'll go faster for sure.
Rick Turner wants to know, who do I got to marry to get my own built-in Super Tony fabricator?
Oh man. Well, okay. So here's a couple things. Like, you can see that we, after we put everything in, we put all the wiring, all the lines are all back in the factory locations. I like to do nice stuff like that, right? Maybe you don't care. By the time you put it on the skid plate, nobody will be able to see it, and you don't have to worry about it. But, I wanted things tucked up. I want it done and done right, Certainly you could cut corners and save time. Or if you're having a shop do it, let them do the heavy lifting, the big welding, all that stuff, and then you come back and do the detail stuff yourself. Okay?
Okay. Edwin Rafael Ventura says, fan of Waldies in the house.
Nice. Nice.
Matt McDonough asked, does the stage 1 stretch the wheelbase by a few inches? Does it move the front axle forward a little bit?
It does not. We tried to move it just a little bit. Hang on. Yeah, switch this way. So this is the limiting factor right here. Okay? The fact that the coil spring bucket is already fixed, right? That's the factory. So unless you're willing to cut that off, then you can't move the axle forward. This is why, when you start looking at our different stages, stage 2, stage 3, or even all the way to stage 4, yes, we move the axle way forward on stage 4 because you cut that off and you put a tower on. Okay, so then there's nothing holding you back. It's also, and I'm actually glad come back over this way. Come all the way around, swoop in here like this again. Okay, focus right here, okay? So this is a great opportunity for me to talk about why we run the Curry axles. So look at how tight all this is to the differential. I can barely get my fingers between the track bar and the differential. This is only a 44, okay? So if you think about this being tilted back, well now, when you tilt this back, it pushes the upper control arm mount 4 inches back, which means I can easily move the axle 2 or more inches forward without interfering with the track bar or the steering, right? Some of these things are things we can't move. Like, look, I know people move steering boxes and stuff. I'm telling you, don't get involved in that. That is way too much for an average guy to try and take care of, or go full hydro. Forget that too. That you need, if you want to drive on the street, you need a mechanical connection, which also gives you feedback and modulation. When you go to full hydro, there's no feel whatsoever. It's like driving a forklift. Have you ever driven a forklift? They're like squirrely, okay? So this is what you want. And you're gonna see this exact same setup on Terremoto, and you're gonna see the exact same setup on Aftershock and every EXS we're pumping out. Like this is what we do, and we have this figured out, and this is the right way to do it for sure. Okay. And by the way, this is way over and above what anybody else is doing. They're all selling you just bolt-on crap that's all leveraged and thin and weak and falling apart.
Okay, Snowboard Life says, hey Tony, for Sonic, how hard would it be to change the oil with all the new stuff under the engine bay?
Actually, it's not. So there's very little that we did up on top, and the oil plug is right here. Can you see my finger?
Yeah.
Yep. So right there. And these are some aftermarket skids, which actually I like, and they're going to be great. Now, obviously we've sucked everything up. She's going to have more travel. She's on 37s now. She's not even going to be hitting any of this stuff. She's just going to glide right over now. So just like Terremoto, but remember, she's gaining over 3 inches of ground clearance in the middle. That means her breakover, going over stuff is huge. And she'll never hear another thing hit on this thing.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Because she used to hear the sound of depreciation all the time.
Jacob Monkabon asked, JK 2015 two-door Willys, would the aluminum Elite transmission and oil pan skid plate still bolt up to a stock Jeep without the Elite suspension?
No. So you got to understand that, and we do make a stage 1 for the two-door as well. It all happens here in these cross members, right? The factory cross member hangs down, right? Because the gas tank's here. You got to move the gas tank to the back. You put the 2 cross members in, and then you get the flat belly. That's where it all happens, okay? And these are 1/4 inch wall. This is super beefy stuff. These are the exact same thing in our stage 4, okay? So So whether you just plan on staying with stage 1 or you plan on upgrading down the road, you'll never, once you put these in, that's it, you're done. And everything else revolves around these 2 cross members and the big skid plate. Okay.
Matt McDonough says my PSC big bore fits with a Hemi in my JK.
There you go.
Cool.
There you go. Yeah.
Joshua Whiteside says, awesome, thank you. I'm ready to check it out at Jeepers.
Nice. Jeep
Adventures. Is that Josh? Could you run front coilovers so you can push it forward, leaving the back on coils?
You could. Okay, so now you're starting to get into the whole, like, what's possible. Anything's possible. But what we were trying to do was sell you a kit that was balanced and in stages. But yeah, obviously anything's possible. You could not run the 44s, the factory 44s. You could run a Sterling or a 14 bolt back here. The difference is my directions are not for that. Okay, so once you start veering off from that, you're 100% on your own. If you're the kind of guy that wants to, put stuff right in that location and not have to cycle things and check it all out, then you're going to want to stick with our stage 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Will the Armadillo diff skid be an option for the Dynatrac Pro Rock 60?
No, we only have that for the Curry. A lot of it has to do with the fabricated cover, okay? Because it allows us to get up on the other side of the fabricated cover and have something to mount to. The Dynatrac has a cast cover, and I can't get in there to do that skid. I did notice that this new Curry 60 has side mounts for a skid plate. So they've already been thinking about that even for this one.
Let's see. Tom Curran said, nice adjustable front axle lift.
Yeah, okay, so this is, they sell these things at Harbor Freight. And, I think they sell them as a transmission lift. This upper thing spins off, and we just fabricated this to fit on there, and then it allows us, this is like trailer hitch material, to move all this and adjust it, because a lot of the time, we need to be under here and working, and then you just step on the pedal, and like I was showing you guys, I can also drop this down.
Yeah. Don't do it.
So okay, so there's full bump for this front axle now, or sorry, full extension. So that I'm hanging on the shocks now, and this would be just like your Jeep if you were to jack it up. But you can see how much travel that had. I mean, this is a massive amount, and there was no bump steer because the track bar and the drag link are in perfect alignment. So all of that, is part of what makes what we're doing here like super cool.
Let's see. Esteban Gonzalez asked, what do you recommend for a front diff cover?
So any fabricated aftermarket one, I think, I can't remember who, I think this might be Rough Stuff, this particular one. But there's a lot of them that do it, but it needs to be manufactured out of plate steel, metal, right? So you can see how this is that's what we do on all of our Curry diffs too. We have, sorry, let's come around this. So you can back in there. Good? Mm-hmm. Now you can see it. So this one's actually pretty fancy. It's got like a whole center section for the ring gear and then, kind of fabricated around. But this is a nice one, and it's got an extra big fill and a drain on the bottom. So those are all handy features.
It's not red. Get it
Not
off.
yet. It'll be red.
Okay,
Relax.
okay.
Relax.
Ari, hi Ari. Says you say that you're on your own, but isn't it true that people call all the time with questions and your guys help them through some tough design considerations?
Well, yeah. Okay. So, but my sales guys are not qualified to start talking about what it takes to do a Sterling or a 14 bolt or some odd junkyard axle. Those are choices that you're making, and you've got to work through those things. We can help you with the basics, and our instructions are going to tell you what the basics are. But it's not the University of GenRight, right? Like, we're happy to try and help, but once you step outside those parameters, then you've got to understand. I want people's expectation to be realistic, that you are on your own. Okay.
Snowboard Life says, hey Tony, I can't afford the Elite Kit Stage 1, but I have stock axles with 37s. Is it worth spending $2,000 plus for Curry axles front and back?
Well, okay. The Curry axle has thicker bracketry. It's high pinion. It's gonna still use your knuckles and axle shafts and stuff. It's a really nice axle, no doubt about it. So it, I don't know, that's up to you and what your budget is around, but it is a nice product. It's same Dynatrack offers one too. They're nice products. Okay.
Jeep Adventures, did you say if you push the rear end back?
The rear end, we did take back a little bit to get the tire in the middle of the opening. So yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt McDonough, for the Stage 2, what are the length of the 2.5 coilovers?
For the Stage 2, you're going to have, if you go to our coilovers, it's 14 inch in the back and 12 inch in the front.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Callie says hello.
Hi.
Daniel Partita, question. What do you think about power stop brake upgrade?
Similar aftermarket company to R1. We just prefer the R1. I've tried the different ones and they seem to be the most effective. They've got they're focused on off-road as well, and they're a great company to work with.
Jeep Fam, do you have a recommendation for a shop in Central Florida to help with some coilover setup issues?
Yeah, they're in Central Florida. We've got Track and Trail. We've got the guys over at Bruiser. I know they're pretty busy, but it seems like everybody's pretty busy. But either of those guys, you got one like Tampa and one near Daytona. So both of those guys know coilovers. I mean, not as good as us, but they'll be able to help you.
And Frank Gattuso asked, are those 5100 Bilstein shocks?
They are. They are. These, again, we just kept what she had, but I've already ordered Kings and Foxes for this to swap them out and try different stuff.
Okay, we're all caught up.
All right, awesome. How are we doing on time? We're actually doing pretty good, huh?
5:53.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, on all this stuff. But look at the size of the hardware on this. Is 3/4 inch. This is exactly the same stuff that we run on our race car, that we run on Terremoto, on Aftershock. Guys, this is all the big beefy stuff. This tie rod is 1/4 inch thick chromoly. The track bar, 1/4 inch thick chromoly. This is really beefy stuff. This is 3/16 thick on the drag link because you don't need it that thick. But all TIG welded. Again, it's all pre-welded, pre-done. You're getting the good FK Heims, the good Johnny joints on the suspension. They're all rebuildable, lubable. I want to reassure people you're doing the right thing. You're getting the best you can for what you're working with, and we're able to do it in stages so that you feel like you're able to upgrade better than what else is available out there, but not having to spend $100,000. This is 10% of that. So.
Snowboard Life asks, hey Tony, for your GenRight's spare tire carrier, how often do you have to oil the pins to open the tailgate of your Jeep?
So let me grab it. I saw it right here. I use this stuff. It's clear, and this is synthetic. I think I got this at Home Depot. But put some of this on the pin itself, and then put the pin in and out a couple times. What'll happen is this synthetic lube will go down inside the bushing. There's little grooves in there, and it'll get trapped. So if you put the pin in and out, it'll pick up more of this lube that's in there. I also will put a thin layer of this on the top and bottom of the bushing itself. So now when you close, the thing is like super nice. Now on the hinge side, don't put this. This is only on the latch side, okay? The hinge side you want actually to be a little bit restrictive so that the thing doesn't just swing open the moment you're not on perfectly flat ground. This is only for the latch pin side. Okay, but this is the stuff, I'm telling you. If you use something else, it's going to be messy. This is clean, simple.
Super lube.
And man, it's magic for sure.
Matt McDonough asked, would it be better to run the bolt head on top of the steering components?
So what we did was we shanked all these bolts. If you don't know what that means, let me show you. So when you get a bolt, it has a shank on here where it's not threaded. So if you turn this around, then what happens is sometimes you're not able to get the whole thing shanked. So in this case, this is a smaller bolt, obviously. But what we're trying to do is only have the threads right where the nut is. We want the shank portion in here. So you can still do it that way. That's fine. It's totally up to you. This is the way we show it in the instructions. So certainly, on something like this, you can't get the bolt in from the top on the pitman arm unless the pitman arm's off, right? So we just run it this way, and then you don't have to worry about it. By the way, these are genuine unitorque nuts. These will not come loose. They will not fall off. You never. This isn't like regular stuff. That standard stuff. You got to worry about loosening up and falling off. Not this stuff. I guarantee you could toss this thing off the Grand Canyon, and this bolt would still be there and connected. Okay.
Two Feather Channel asks, who sells the taper bit to drill out the knuckles for the correct size?
Okay, so you got a couple of choices. One is you can use a step bit, right, and take out the taper. By the way, it's already 3/4 of an inch on one side and it's 5/8 on the other side. So you're not taking out a ton of material. So when you do this, it really doesn't take much, but do not use a regular drill bit. You want that like unibit style to do it, okay?
Okay. Troy Merritt asks, is there a reason for the nuts on the drag link and tie rod being on top with the bolt going upwards?
Yes, that's what I just explained, how we shanked them. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Michael Costin, will the stock pitman arm need to be changed?
No, you do have to drill it out. Just like we talked about on the knuckles, that taper has to be drilled out as well.
Okay. Kyle Jackson asks, will a TJ be significantly weaker if you drill a hole in the floorboard to access the inside of the torque tube?
Okay. Well, so years ago, I did cut a small hole in the floorboard before I built my own cross member. And what I did was I ran a cable up over the top of the roll cage to go down and hold the driveline. Because I don't know if you realize this, but when you drop the transmission skid plate, the entire driveline comes down with it, right? There's no extra cross member in there. So I didn't want that to happen because I needed to service everything. And you could put a jack stand under there. There's a lot of sketchy stuff you can do. So then that's when I started building cross members because I thought it was ridiculous that you couldn't drop the skid plate without the whole thing coming down. So.
Okay, we're all caught up.
Nice. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, not this coming weekend, but the next, we're going to be taking this out for its shakedown run, and then we'll have it on the Rubicon at Jeepers Jamboree. So that's our next event. And then we've got a NorCal overland trip coming up. And then what do we got after that? We're going to the Hammers. We're going, look on our website under events and runs. We got a bunch of events coming up. You can sign up now and get it on your calendar and start planning for it. So lots of good stuff. Let's see, where will we be next Wednesday? Will we be here? No. Actually, we might be. We might be here, yeah. So we'll be here next Wednesday. You'll see this thing on the ground, maybe even driving around. It should be done because we leave the next day. So it's got to be done. All right, till then, have a great weekend. Hope you're doing something fun. And we'll see you next Wednesday for Tech Talk.